America was born from a powerful idea, the idea of freedom. Its founding documents spoke of liberty. They declared that all men are created equal. These were words that promised a new beginning, a chance for people to govern themselves, to pursue their own happiness. It was a bold vision, a beacon of hope in the world, but a deep shadow was cast upon this bright promise. While the nation spoke of liberty for all, millions were not free. Men, women, and children were taken from Africa. They were forced into slavery. They worked without pay, without rights. Their lives were owned by others. This was the great contradiction. The nation's ideals clashed with its reality, freedom for some, chains for many others. This fundamental conflict would shape America's early history. This division was not a small matter. It was a deep wound in the heart of the country, the belief in freedom for oneself, while denying it to another. This could not last. The nation was like a house with a crack in its foundation. That crack grew wider with each passing year. It threatened to bring the entire structure down. The very soul of America was at stake. The struggle was over the meaning of freedom itself. Who was included in its promise? What did all men are created equal truly mean? These were not easy questions. The answers would come at a terrible cost. This conflict between the dream of liberty and the nightmare of bondage set the stage for a profound American tragedy. It was a battle that had to be fought. For millions of enslaved Africans, life was a constant ordeal. Their days began before the sun rose. They ended long after it set. They toiled in the scorching sun, in fields of cotton, tobacco, and sugarcane. They worked in the homes of their enslavers, cooking, cleaning, caring for children not their own. Their labor built the wealth of the South, but they received no share of it. Enslaved people were denied basic human dignity. They were legally considered property. They could be bought and sold like animals. Families were routinely torn apart, husbands separated from wives, children taken from their parents, never to see each other again. There was no legal protection for them. Their voices were silenced. Their suffering often ignored by the laws of the land. The system of slavery was enforced by violence. Fear was a daily presence. The overseer's whip was a constant threat. Punishments were harsh for any perceived wrongdoing, or for no reason at all. Yet within this brutal system, resilience grew. Small acts of defiance occurred, quiet moments of shared humanity. These were testaments to an unbreakable spirit, a spirit that yearned for more. Despite the crushing weight of bondage, hope endured. Enslaved people preserved their culture. Through music, stories, and faith, they formed communities. They supported one another. They dreamed of a future where they could be free. This dream was a powerful force. It was a light in the deepest darkness. It would never be extinguished. The issue of slavery could not be contained. It was a fire spreading across the land. The United States became two distinct societies, the North and the South. Their ways of life grew further apart. Their economies were different. Their values clashed. At the center of this chasm was slavery. It was the source of constant tension. It was an argument that would not go away. The Southern economy depended heavily on enslaved labor. Vast plantations produced valuable crops. Cotton was king, tobacco was wealth. This agricultural empire was built on the backs of slaves. Southern leaders fiercely defended their institution. They saw it as essential to their prosperity and to their entire way of life. They feared any threat to this system. They resisted calls for change. In the North, industry was growing. More and more people came to see slavery as morally wrong, a stain on the nation's honor. It violated the principles of freedom and equality. As America expanded westward, a critical question arose. Would new territories allow slavery, or would they be free soil? This question pushed the nation to its limits. It fueled anger and division. Many attempts were made to find a compromise, to bridge the divide between North and South. But these efforts ultimately failed. The differences were too profound. The election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860 was the final spark. Lincoln opposed the expansion of slavery. Southern states saw this as a threat. They chose to leave the Union. The nation was broken. War had become unavoidable. The Civil War was a brutal and bloody conflict. It lasted 4 long years. Brother fought against brother. The nation tore itself apart. The war began as an effort to preserve the Union, to keep the country together, but it evolved. It became a war to end slavery. President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation declared slaves in Confederate territory free. It was a turning point, a promise of liberation. The Union victory in 1865 brought an end to the war. It also brought an end to slavery. The 13th Amendment to the Constitution was passed. It officially abolished slavery throughout the United States. Millions of enslaved people were finally free. This was a monumental change. A new era had dawned, but the challenges ahead were immense. The work was far from over. The period after the war was called Reconstruction. It was an attempt to rebuild the shattered nation, and to define what freedom meant for newly emancipated African Americans. New constitutional amendments were passed. The 14th Amendment granted citizenship. The 15th Amendment aimed to secure voting rights for black men. These were steps toward a more just society, but progress was slow and difficult. The Civil War transformed America. It came at an unimaginable cost in human lives. The struggle for genuine freedom and equality did not end with the war. It continued for generations. It continues today. It is vital that we remember this pivotal period. We must remember the sacrifices made. We must understand the deep roots of division, and we must cherish the ongoing pursuit of liberty and justice for all.